All right, today I'm going to cover 1.3 patterns of life. I'm actually going to break this section into two parts. And so today I'm going to focus on just identifying characteristics of living things, whereas the second lecture of this, I'll talk about this idea of cross-cutting concepts or themes that reappear in biology. So here we go. So first off, I just actually want to go off on a little tangent about the golden ratio, okay? Something that I discovered as I was making this PowerPoint. So the golden ratio. What is the golden ratio? Golden ratio, also known as phi, is a special number that equals approximately 1.618. And the cool thing about this ratio is that it appears in a lot of different places. It appears in nature, as you can see here with the shells and the plants and the ram's horn. It appears in geometry, like in the formation of a pentagram and this triangle. It appears in art, Mona Lisa, The Last Supper. I don't even know what these are. This is the wave. That's a pretty cool painting. Architecture, nature, I already said that in nature, and some other areas. Okay, so you're probably thinking, oh, I've seen this before. This has been on memes before. You know, I feel like people just take this image and they just basically paste it over other images, right? You just can't put the Fibonacci sequence on top. I see what you did there, right? Okay, so first off, how do you find the golden ratio? You find it when you divide a line into two parts. So here's my line. I divide it into two parts so that the long part, the line, is divided by the short part is also equal to the whole length divided by the long part. So you're probably thinking like, what? So here I pulled up the website because it has a nice little interactive thing here. Okay. So the long part divided by the short part is also equal to the whole length divided by the long part. So it says, have a try yourself. Use the slider. So here is my line, equal to 1. So I take this slider, and what I want to do is I want to have the blue and the orange, when you divide them, equal 1.68, as well as the black divided by the blue equal 1.618. So I keep sliding it. We're almost there. 1.8, 1.5, 1.7, 1.5, 1.6. Oh, passed it. There it is. All right. So here's the point where the ratios are the same. If I take this line divided by the length of this line, I get 1.618. And here I take the whole line divided by the blue, I get 1.618. Okay, so a lot of times the golden ratio is associated with beauty. Like I said, some artists as well as some architects believe that it's the most pleasing and beautiful of shapes. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. That's totally up to you. But the Parthenon in Greece is designed that way, but no one really knows if it was specifically designed that way. Here's the actual value, and then like I said, it appears in geometry, especially in the formation of pentagrams. Okay. So why did I include that? Well, because I was looking at characteristics of life, and then some reoccurring characteristics, this golden ratio kept popping up in my research, basically. So I thought I'd just share with you all what the golden ratio is. All right, moving on to characteristics of life. So if an organism is classified as a living thing, right, that's what organisms are, living things, they have to possess all of these characteristics in order to be considered alive. And so the first characteristic is that it is made up of cells, whether they be multicellular, like plant cells and animal cells, or unicellular, like here are single-celled E. coli bacterium. They also have to be able to reproduce, either through sexual reproduction, where they have two parents, and they might exchange genetic information, and then you get genetically different offspring, or you reproduce asexually, which means you make clones of yourself. There's no other mate needed. You literally just divide into two, like bacteria cells do. And with asexual reproduction, you produce clones. It's faster than sexual reproduction. This is why sometimes in the morning you're like, oh, I have a little scratch in my throat. And then maybe by the afternoon, you're like, oh my gosh, my throat is on fire. It's because maybe the bacteria that's producing that strep throat, they can reproduce very quickly. Okay, another characteristic of life is that the genetic material is DNA, and this is actually universal. Every living thing that we've looked at has DNA. Okay, it's every DNA molecule that we've looked at has the 4 same nitrogen bases of adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. Okay, another characteristic of life is that you have to grow. Okay, so when you are unicellular, you grow, and then when you get too big, you split into 2. You go through that asexual reproduction. But if you are multicellular, we're going to add another facet to it. You have to grow, but you also have to go through development. Okay, so what I mean by development, you have over 100 different types of cells in your body that carry out specific jobs. You have nerve cells, heart cells, liver cells, skin cells, epithelial cells, fat cells, cartilage cells, and they all carry out a different job from each other. So there's that development piece to that. They carry out a specialized or a specific job that help that organism carry out the processes needed for life. So we have growth and development. So you can all see here that you all started off as a single cell, and it rapidly started to divide into 2 to 4 to 6 to 8, 16, 32, to finally a small baby, toddler, preteen, adult, elderly. Okay, another characteristic is you need materials and energy. Basically, you do metabolism. So you need materials like food. You eat food, food breaks down into molecules, you use those molecules to generate energy, also known as ATP. We call that metabolism. Okay, so yeah. Response to environment. So organisms detect and respond to stimuli from their environment. Now you're probably wondering, what is a stimuli? Well, a stimuli or a stimulus is a signal to which an organism responds. So for external stimuli, which come from the environment outside an organism, factors could be light and temperature. So sunflowers follow the sun as it progresses through the day. Plants grow towards the light. Okay? Internal stimuli means that it's from within an organism. So with internal stimuli, it could be like hunger or thirst, or, well, basically hunger and thirst are the big ones, really. Now, internal stimuli is kind of tied to homeostasis just a little bit. So homeostasis, very big word, just means that you're trying to maintain an internal balance of something. Maybe it's pH level, temperature, body temperature, blood sugar, or water. So here's an example of our body temperature. Our body is basically like a giant thermostat where we hang around that 98 degrees Fahrenheit. If we go outside and it's 30 below, our body temperature is not going to drop to 30 below. It pretty much stays around 98. How does it do that? Okay, well, first off, you're wearing appropriate clothes, right? But your body, if it dips below 98.6, you might start to shiver and you'll start to burn more molecules to keep your body temperature at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Or if you get too hot, right, then you start to perspire or you start to sweat, and that's a cooling process, and it brings your body temperature back to 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, evolution. So although individual organisms experience many changes during their lives, the basic traits they inherit from their parents usually do not change. So as a group, any given kind of organism can evolve or change over time. Now, I'm not saying that, these changes are very dramatic from one generation to the next, but over a few generations, changes in a group, may not be that significant. They could just be small changes. But if you give it enough time, like hundreds of thousands or even millions of years, the changes can be pretty dramatic. And so the ability of a group of organisms to change over time is pretty invaluable for its survival in a world that's always changing. So that's what evolution just means, change over time. How do you adapt to your environment? Okay, so here's a little comic. I'm cold and hungry. I see humans around a bonfire. Maybe I can ask them for food. What could possibly go wrong? And then it says 30,000 years later. Yeah. So it's just saying that dogs domesticated from wolves. All right, so here I have some pictures showing some characteristics of life. Let's see if we can identify them. So the man just about to get hit with a balloon. That would be an external stimuli or response to stimuli. The fish with the eggs in its mouth. Reproduction, this is a form of parental care. this cartoon diagram, and it looks like we have magnifying glasses zooming in on his cells. Well, I basically just said the answer. It's made of cells. This gentleman right here, tackling the Chuck Norris burger, which is 2 1-pound beef patties, a Texas grilled cheese toast in the center, 8 slices of bacon, 8 slices of cheese, and you have to finish 2 sides. This would be the need for energy, materials, and energy, also known as metabolism, and you can see me in the background tackling it. And yes, I did beat him. Okay, so that does it for section 1.3, part 1.